This video is all about how I have managed to delegate my work responsibilities out to others so that my business can thrive and I can spend time on other things outside of business that I love and care about, like fitness, family, friends, etc. In this video, I'm going to take you through kind of the various tools in my toolkit after having started, sold, and grown a number of companies at this point.
This week on Building in the Open.
All right, so where did the inspiration for this kind of video, this idea come from? Not only did it come from my own personal experiences, but it came from a lot of conversations with other entrepreneurs. I'm talking really successful serial entrepreneurs. In my opinion, it's like, what's the point of doing all of this if you're going to essentially create a job for yourself that sucks, right? Like a job where you're bouncing from meeting to meeting to meeting. Like that's no fun. That's not a creative space, and that's not energy, at least for me, it's not energy producing. Okay, so the first and maybe the most important is realizing that I'm not the right person for the job. I'm not the best person for the job. What does that mean? I had this inclination to like problem solve for everybody else on my team. And I had this feeling that no one else was willing to go as fast or as hard as I was. And for that reason, I was the best person for really any given job if I wanted to get done quickly and well. And the reality is that's not sustainable, A, and B, it's egotistical and not true most of the time. The fact is there are people out there who specialize in that one thing. And so if you're good at getting the right butts in the right seats, that person should be better at doing that thing than me, right? I think that first, it's more of like a frame, or like a realization that it's okay for someone else to be better at something than me. In fact, it's good and great when I can surround myself with people who are better at things than me. And then my job becomes about enabling them to do their best job. Okay, so the second one I kind of alluded to already when I talked about right butts, right seats. Right butts, right seats. This is one that has taken me a really long time to grasp as an entrepreneur. A previous version of myself would have thought of that as, oh yeah, you just need to hire the right person so that they can do the job and stick around. But after having hired and fired a ton of people in my career across a number of companies, what I've realized is that you might hire someone who's great and you might put them into a seat that you think that they can fill. And what you might learn is that that's actually not the best seat for them. It doesn't mean they're not meant to be part of your company. It doesn't mean that, they kind of failed the test and on to the next one. It just means maybe that just wasn't thorough enough. And then as you get into the relationship, you realize what their actual zone of genius is, what their actual strengths are, and you can adjust them or move them into the right seat. So right butts, right seats is really just a mental model to unlock the performance of your team and to unlock delegation so that you can focus on different things, knowing that the job to be done is going to be handled by someone who's going to knock it out of the park for you. All right, so this next one, I think if you were to ask my closest friends or my closest business colleagues, this is the thing that they would say about me or they would know me for, is the fact that I have a whole playbook with my EA and that I use EAs as this incredibly strategic, underutilized lever to multiply my time. So what do I mean by that? If I think back to before I had an EA, my day might look a little bit like this. I probably would wake up in the morning, I would pull up my to-do list and I would try to make sense of it. And then I would pull up another to-do list somewhere else with some of those strategic things that I wrote down at some point at a coffee shop. And then try to like reconcile them and come up with what is important to work on. Then I would get distracted. I'd go into my email because I need to check my email, of course, and see if there's anything time sensitive or important there, maybe something from a client or from a team member or an investor, any of these things. Then I would, oh my gosh, shoot, I'm late for something. I would look at my calendar. I'd move things around. I'd send invites. I would, the list goes on and on. None of the things I mentioned I should be doing as a CEO of a company, because just on mental bandwidth alone, my mind is processing things in the background all the time. I don't want it to be processing, oh shit, did I forget that one to-do list thing? Or Did I send that invite to someone or did I follow up on that email? That takes up bandwidth mentally, and it's not strategic. The first and kind of most obvious piece to this whole EA thing is having someone who is better and more organized with those items take that over and take it off of my plate. I was probably spending 10 hours a week on those items, maybe more. And now I spend 10 minutes a week. I don't know, because it's all pre-filtered, pre-gone through, curated for me. And so I know exactly where to spend my time when everything is just mapped out in advance. So that gives me back 9 hours that can be used for strategy or pushing the business forward or hiring the most amazing people for other parts of the business and enabling them. So it's a huge, huge unlock. And I think most people think of it as the old school way, the old school version of what that meant. And it's a very much underutilized lever for growth and free time. The real goal here is to 10x my time. And that's how I view the EA role. This is a role that allows me to multiply myself. I go from being, one Eli that is somewhat organized on some days and a total disaster on other days to just on rails and enabled by this other person. If you haven't considered using an EA or leveraging this talent, I'm always preaching this. Everybody that knows me, we'll be in the car going on a ski trip, and I'm trying to convince everybody in that car they need an EA. And if you were to ask me when or how soon is too early, if you have one employee, do it. In fact, I would argue they should be your first employee. Your time is the most valuable in the hierarchy of a business. It's overlooking all elements of whether or not this thing is going to succeed or fail. And so if you can double down on that with a hire like this, that's an amazing foundational element to roll out in the early days. So never too early, blah, 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 blah. So we've talked about realizing you're not the best person for the job. We've talked about right butts, right seats. We've talked about leveraging an EA. We've talked about 10xing your time. What is all of this for? I don't think that we started companies to just bounce hectically from meeting to meeting constantly. And so if we're not able to create space for creativity, for physical fitness, for friends and family, these other buckets that are important to us in our lives, volunteering, then what's it all for? What's the point? And so that's really the big unlock here at the end, is that you can get proactive with choosing how you're going to spend all of this free time that you create for yourself by becoming so efficient. So for me, I have my calendar time blocked, so I know exactly when I'm going to the gym. I know exactly when I'm going for a bike ride. I know exactly when I'm spending time with family. Promise you, I'm not a rigid person. I'm a creative guy. So if they aren't on the calendar, other things will work their way into the calendar. And so it's about being in control of your time proactively. So that's a wrap. I hope that this video resonated with some of you. I hope that maybe there's a tidbit or two in here that you think maybe you could roll out. I'd be curious. Let me know in the comments what did resonate, and are there any of these that you think you could implement kind of right away or in the near future? And any questions. This is a pretty big topic, so I'd imagine there are details I skipped over, glossed over. So feel free to ask those in the comments, and I'll make sure to get back to everybody. Alrighty.